We're going live. Wonder what it's doing here. Oh.
You sure you want to talk with gum in your mouth?
Yeah, it'll be all right. I'll spit it out in a minute.
Can you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We are live. Oh, Lord. Let me see. Okay. I just got to be able to read the questions. There we go. Mm-hmm. What time is it? Okay.
About 9:02.
Social grabber. That's what I want. I want to start. Let's see. Okay. What in the world? I gotta make sure everything's right. We're trying this system out, and I just started using it again. Okay. Okay, if you can hear me, give me thumbs up. I am. If it's too loud, let me know, because I got to get this right. All right. Well, tonight is going to be very special. One, I have spit this gum. One, I have some information to give everybody. As Johnston County citizens, we are all entitled to it. There's no sense in holding back, and I'm not going to. So, tonight I also have with us Mr. Jim Davenport. Jim Davenport, if you all recall, he ran for Johnston County Sheriff several terms ago, and he is here with us tonight to talk about policy and issues and things that are going on. Lately in the news, y'all have seen where a deputy and his wife were, deputy was let go and his wife was put on administrative leave over some accusations. Well, if you read that letter of dismissal, which I don't even know if that was correctly given out. I mean, I know they can give dismissals and the letter out and why someone was discharged, but I don't know if they can give out that whole entire letter. That's something I just don't know about. So even if they can, that's great. That's fine. But anyway, I have come to with investigating a certain issue that I'm getting ready to read about and going into the details. I figured I'd do a letter to Sheriff Bizzle as he did to Deputy Medlin. I feel like, hey, If he's able to write a letter, then I'm able to write a letter and let everybody else come to their conclusion of what's going on and how it's going. That's only fair. So, I think, let me turn this camera just a little bit. Oh, shoot. All right. So, I've prepared a statement, and I will share it with you guys as well online after I get done. So, and then we're going to talk to Mr. Jim Davenport. All right. When I say we, us, our, that means concerned citizens, the ones that got with us and got with me to discuss the issues that were going on, the rumors that were going on, and come to find out these rumors are really true, but they just never came to light due to the fact of people are afraid of the sheriff. So I'm going to read it and I'm going to tell it. Now, I did redact the names due to the fact of some issues, but I'll read it in this letter. Okay, so we, concerned citizens now, just remember that. We have reviewed information with regards to the administrative investigation which we directed to be commenced after being informed of allegations that you had engaged in improper and inappropriate relationships with several married women who, at the time and currently, are employees of the Johnston County Sheriff's Office, where you serve as High Sheriff. This administrative investigation also showed you have improper and inappropriate relationships with married women within the community where you serve as High Sheriff. This administrative investigation also showed you had engaged in improper and inappropriate conduct with several state and federal inmates while the persons were in custody where you serve as the High Sheriff. The investigation showed your improper conduct and established a basis for the requested action that, in our discretion, we have determined should be taken as concerned citizens. During the investigation, witnesses came forward and gave great detail of the allegations of you engaging in improper and inappropriate relationships with the Johnston County Sheriff's Office as well as outside of the Johnston County Sheriff's Office. Due to the nature of families being uprooted, destroyed by the distasteful and grotesque behavior, we have decided to redact the names of your mistresses. During the investigation, witnesses came forward and gave great detail of the allegations of you engaging in improper and inappropriate conduct with several state and federal inmates while the persons were in custody when Meg Scott Phipps, former Democrat agricultural commissioner, was being held at the Johnston County Detention Center as a federal inmate. You personally directed employees under your leadership at the Johnston County Detention Center to allow her to dress out into normal attire, leave the facility with you, her husband, and a few other individuals, redacted individuals, to enjoy a night out on the town with the use of the Johnston County taxpayers' funds, i.e. use of the transport van, etc. Other improper and inappropriate conduct was practiced when you provided several defense attorneys and former county state employees while they were inmates with a separate room for dining as well as special meals from outside sources that consider the entree as gourmet. Steak, potato. The witnesses who primarily made the allegations against you have firsthand knowledge of these events and are willing to testify against you in a court of law when and if any criminal or civil charges can or will be brought against you. They're not afraid of you. These occurrences, among others, have led to the conclusion that you have been unfaithful, untrustworthy, and have failed to discharge your duty as the Johnston County Sheriff. After consideration of all these factors in your elected position as the Johnston County Sheriff, we have concluded that continuing your elected position as sheriff is not consistent with the standards that you yourself have set forth for the Johnston County Sheriff's Office. We have concluded that your continued position as elected sheriff with this county will interfere with the appropriate, proper, efficient, and effective administration of the Johnston County Sheriff's Office, and therefore that you should resign. We are willing to consider any written response you choose to make within the next 10 days. Does this all sound familiar to you guys? You will have until 5 p.m. on Monday, June 6, 2022 to submit any written response that you desire. No oral presentation will be permitted and no extensions of time will be permitted. This name clearing procedure will be the only such procedure offered to you if you wish to seek reversal of our decision. All right, so yeah, I was being condescending, but I was being serious that, you know, these things have been going on in Johnston County with the sheriff, hidden behind the people's back. It has been rumored around, but once you start talking to the actual individuals involved, and they actually feeling like they've been used and that it needed to come out, they're willing to do something about it. People are willing for change. And when we're talking about procedures, you know, when I go back to Medlin's dismissal, it talks about how, you know, violation of policy, that he has actually written, and that, you know, these policies and procedures are to protect the county, the citizens, students, everybody, whoever. But yet he fails to do his own protection of those procedures and regulations. And I've got Jim Davenport here, and I want to talk to him. I want him to talk a little bit about, you know, when he was running for sheriff, he asked for these procedures. He asked for these things to be in place, and where are they? And it was his right to have it, but they kept blowing him off. But I'm going to let him tell it, and I'm going to bring him on screen here. And I think it'll be interesting to hear what he's got to say. He's been through a whole lot with this ordeal. Here he is.
Hi, thanks, Dave. My name is Jim Davenport. I ran against Steve Bizzle in 2014. I ran as an independent candidate, so I was a write-in candidate. My main focus was I realized that I was running up against an incumbent who had been there for a number of years and was firmly established in the county, where I had at the time only lived here a few years. I've been here 15 years now. My brief history, if I can give it to you, is I'm a veteran of the Marine Corps. I was in the military, a sergeant military police. I was in CID. I attained my degree while in the Marine Corps on the GI Bill in criminal justice. I went through the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Academy, attended that, and when I got out of the Marine Corps, I graduated from the Baltimore County Police Academy, served a career there, and was a state investigator with BEI, Department of State in Pennsylvania, and retired from that. When I came to North Carolina, where my wife was from, in Johnson County in 2007, then I went through BLET in Johnson Community College. I then went through, but ultimately did retire from Rocky Mount Police Department. and was during my career, I was a detective and supervisor and also motorcycle officer. So that gives you, and also I spent 2 years as a federal investigator. So just to give you a kind of a brief overview. Now, I came from a system in Baltimore County where in Baltimore County I was an officer in the FOP, which is the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 4. There we were an actual union. Of course, North Carolina is a right-to-work state, so what Dave read, it's within the sheriff's purview to be able to terminate someone. I have to backtrack a little bit and wonder why the sheriff would, because I had never seen this before in all the agencies that I've been around, why the sheriff would have allowed one of his deputies to work in the same school with the deputy's wife. That's something that I don't quite understand. And I don't understand it for several reasons. One, because oftentimes, as an SRO or police officer, you're going to make at least a few enemies. That's just the way it is. You're going to have people that don't like you for whatever reason. Now, if you're also in there with your spouse, there may be those same people that also don't like your spouse. So that gives them the opportunity to attack both of you if they so choose. During your police career, you're subject to people that you arrest telling your superiors when you get them into the station that you grope them, you touch them, whatever. And of course, this didn't happen other than to place handcuffs on them and search them. But you still get those complaints nonetheless because they don't like you. You're put in a position they don't want you to be in. So, and another thing is, which makes me wonder too, if in fact there's an active shooter, and you have to think about this, okay, because we're only human. So if you have a spouse that's a teacher and you know their specific room and you know at the same time that somebody has just breached the school and is armed and engaging, what is that person going to do? Are they going to actually engage the suspect like they should and take that person out? Or are they going to run to their wife first or husband or whoever the teacher is, make sure that they're safe, and then engage? And that is a consideration too. So personally, I would never have done that. Now, you have to understand one thing going back to 2014. I asked the sheriff's office for to look at their policy and procedures manual. Every department writes their own rules, policies, and procedures manual, regulations, rules, whatever. Anyway, so what happened was I was shown by Captain Jeffrey Caldwell what I would term a generic one. This was written, I believe, in Iowa or Idaho, and I looked at about 4 or 5 chapters of it, and it was all generic. It was all generic material. It was nothing to do with Johnson County sheriffs. It was for any police or sheriff's agency that decided to buy this. I asked, and he was surprised because he thought I was going to be there for 3 or 4 hours reading everything. Now, they would not allow me to read certain sections. They would not allow me to read the section on active shooter. Now, by that time, of course, I was still a certified police officer. I was still I had gone through much more training. I was certified after the very first full year in North Carolina as an advanced certified police officer, which is the highest rating that you can get as a police officer. So, and I had been through, I couldn't even tell you, probably 10 or 12 active shooter scenarios by that time as far as training, and then several mass shootings in reality while responding as a police officer in real life. So, there are things that I looked at, and of course they wouldn't let me look at that, like I was somehow going to see something that I shouldn't see. And I thought that was ridiculous. I thought it was ridiculous that there was no regulations, policy, and procedure manual of the sheriff's own. For an agency that size, they should have had one. They should have had one years before. And I asked Captain Caldwell about that, and he said, well, that's just kind of a guideline. Well, you can't, when you're in policing, situations are often very fluid. Things change very rapidly in some things. But the thing is, you need to have your own rules, regulations, and procedures. How are you going to know what you're violating if you don't? Now, in the case of this Deputy Medlin, I'm not going to Monday night quarterback it because it is still under investigation. The second thing that I don't understand is, why wasn't he suspended? Why was and one, who conducted the initial investigation, or has it been investigated by the SBI all along? Now, if it's been investigated by the SBI all along, then why has there not been a conclusion? Why did they just tell the sheriff certain things to where he could contradict what the deputy said in order to terminate him? Now, again, you have to understand that the sheriff, apparently in North Carolina, really doesn't even have to give him a reason. He can just terminate him. I understand he terminated a sergeant just several weeks ago, and nobody knows the reason for that.
Well, I'll interject right quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Before we get into that, I want to say, police administration, that is one thing we were taught while we were in school, that the administration and the procedures and law are things we are taught to understand and know. And the very first thing you do as a chief or a sheriff is write your own procedure, write your own oath, write down what the sheriff's office means, what the police department means, and what are their standards.
Yeah, you're going to have a break-in period, but you definitely need your own.
He's had 26 years.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know how long there have been sheriffs before him. Mm-hmm. So there should have been one written, I would think, a long time ago, and ultimately you change it. You have to, as with technology, because and with new laws, with different things. So it has to be. It's continually updated because you have to go through just like you would in service training every year. You have to be continually updated in policy and procedure. But yeah, that's another thing also. But as far as the investigation itself, obviously it's ongoing. But there is such a thing as due process. So I don't understand why he couldn't have been suspended until the SBI concluded their investigation.
Well, if you read the letter basically says you lied. Well, it's like I tell people, okay, if my wife and I are in the bed and we're watching a movie, and Shiloh's friend's sister, which she comes over right much, the mom drops her off, she's 16, doesn't have a license or whatever, but she'll see us in there watching a movie. So she'll say, can I come in and watch the movie with you? Of course. She gets right into bed with us. Now, we're not under the covers or anything, we're just sitting there watching a movie, and she joins in. Now, if she falls asleep on the bed, then I get up and I leave and I go somewhere else. But if as long as she's sitting there, I don't fall asleep, neither does my wife. We'll watch the movie all together. My other son will come in. We will watch it all together.
Well, what's funny is my late mother was a teacher. Mm-hmm. And I remember numerous times where she would become friends. My mom was a single mother, and where she would become friends with moms of students. Mm-hmm. And there were a number of times where these students, where their mother or whatever was going somewhere, then my mom would say, oh, yeah, she can come on over to our house. and that person would watch TV with us, movies, whatever, fall asleep on the couch, whatever. We never gave it a second thought. But then again, too, let's face it, it's a different world now.
Oh.
I mean, when I was in high school, probably when you were in high school, it was very common on the first day of hunting season to see all these rifles in rifle racks in pickup trucks and in the backs of cars and stuff, and nobody ever gave a second thought about it. But nowadays, you can't have a weapon like that anywhere near a place.
We've got social media. There's many teachers out there that have the students on their social media and talk to them. And my own son, my little 13-year-old, has got his teacher on social media.
I'm not surprised, especially in reference regarding the past 2 years with COVID, because that's largely how they had to communicate.
This is where you get into a sheriff that has no idea about. You need to be educated, and education is very important to understand how people change, mental health, and how the society accepts things and doesn't accept things.
Right. There are so many things that I found. It was largely due to my efforts, because what I did was I posted. I wrote letters to the editor. I did different things when I was running for sheriff. And I noticed one of his deputies was in a bad situation where he ended up getting in a fight and kicked in the back between two people, I guess a male and a female. And I noticed that his deputies had no tasers. So that was one of the things I wrote about. I also wrote about, and especially in this type of environment, when you have... He still only runs, and I think he's done that for like 20 years, only 8 patrol areas for an enormous sized county. I happen to live in what's called Patrol Area 1. That is a ridiculously large area for a deputy. And there are times I know that they've had 3 and 4 deputies. I know that for a fact, out on the road at one time in this county. They are currently, the last I heard, and this was substantiated through a deputy, that they were 38 deputies down in this county.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you have a 4-platoon system, which is normal in a police department or a sheriff's office, then that equates to roughly 8 deputies per shift that they don't have. Actually, it's more than that. Actually, it's more like 9.
11, isn't it?
Well, it's more like 9 or 10. It's not 10, but they should have. In other words, they should have substantial backup. It's an extremely dangerous job. People don't realize it. You may be 10 miles from the nearest. In one of the elevation areas, you may be 10 miles away from your nearest backup, and they may not hear you if you are in an actual fight, and it depends on your situation. Now, as far as I know, they still don't have cameras in their vehicles. Some of the vehicles do not have cages. So there were things that I had suggested, and as it turned out, and one of the things that I submitted to was when I was with the DEA task force in Rocky Mount, we were going after different criminals, and I was talking to some of the U.S. Marshals, and the U.S. Marshals said, I asked them about that program, and they said, and I told them where I lived, and they said, well, Johnson County doesn't have that. And I said, well, what's the benefit? And they said, well, we pay the deputy the extra money for coming over to work with the U.S. Marshals, and then we pay that department $200,000 a year. So I'm thinking, okay, by this time, the sheriff has been sheriff for about, let me see, I guess it would have been about 14 years. So that's $200,000 a year he was missing for all those years that he and the county were missing. Now I understand he has somebody. So people have been telling me since I ran that basically these new things are because of what I wrote that I would do, if I were sheriff.
Well, he's taking your ideas. He's taking Bill Burgess's ideas. He even took one of my ideas when I asked Bill Burgess on the podcast we had with him. I said, why can't we take these vehicles or this equipment and donate it to some of the smaller agencies that need something? What does he do this year?
Yeah, he
Gives them a
donated
car.
to Micro. Yeah, I
mean,
saw that.
Think about it.
And the thing is, you have to understand too that here's a guy who most departments will have people go to things like the Northwest School, which is Northwestern has an excellent traffic school, and because even sheriff's offices oftentimes will have a division, a traffic division, or a division that will take special projects on, because the highway patrol here is also short. Mm-hmm. And they don't have the manpower to do special projects, I'm sure. I really don't honestly know, but I know that they're short, so mm-hmm. I'm assuming they can't really do very many special projects. So that's very common with the department. He has never had, which I am amazed at, he has never had anyone go through the FBI National Academy. And that is really, really surprising. But see, it's not surprising if you're not a progressive person. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to know what the latest things are and how to do the latest things. I know several people personally who, as sheriff's deputies, on their time off in Johnson County, went to courses at Johnson Community College, 1 or 2 day classes, and were actually pulled out by Chief Deputy Benji Gaddis at the direction of the sheriff because he found out they were going to these courses on their own, and those courses are free to those deputies. Mm-hmm. They were told by Benji Gaddis, the chief deputy, that they could not go to those classes unless the sheriff told them they could go to those classes. Well, the only way you're going to get your intermediate and your advanced certification, which takes years to get as a sheriff's deputy or police officer, you need advanced training. Mm-hmm. Advanced training is critical, especially in today's environment. That
comes with the fear factor, or Napoleon syndrome, if you want to call it. He doesn't have education. Mm-hmm. He's got the simple, basic high school GED.
Right.
He went to BLET, dropped out of it, quit it, and then he ran for sheriff and got it. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, that's a man that's afraid of someone having more knowledge than him that can actually do the job better, and he's afraid of that.
Right.
And I would, if I was him, you know, he had plenty of time. Instead of going out chasing tail, he could have actually went and chased a degree, just like I did.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Obviously, you know about all those things. I don't know anything about what you were talking about in your monologue, mm-hmm. but you have to understand that is law enforcement is a constant progression, is a constant learning experience. You have to continually go to school. If you don't, you're going to be behind the curve. Every time you don't have the people that are progressing, it's just like you're literally going backwards. And if you don't have people killed, if your people aren't killing people, well, take the deputy, for example, that was involved in that traffic wreck on 301.
Right.
For example, now every police officer is trained to know, and sheriff's deputy to know during vehicle pursuit training, that you outrun your siren at 55 miles an hour. Now, this deputy, I believe the Highway Patrol found that he was at a speed of 110 miles an hour. There were several cars between the victim, driver, and this deputy. There was a call of a suicide. Now, whether the suicide was completed mm-hmm. or whether the person was holding a gun to their head, that was never really explained. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, he still had his due diligence as far as his driving. And when you're driving that fast, and especially and it's a sunny day, that lady at that time was likely turning toward the sun, never looked to her left because she never had a reasonable expectation that a car would be coming up on her left at any speed. Because that's the oncoming. She was making a left-hand turn in an intersection, so she looked to see if a car was coming in the other lane, which it wasn't, but the deputy was in the other lane, passing these other cars at a very high rate of speed and killed her. And that was very tragic and very preventable. And that's an issue that you have to look at. But see, the thing is, how much training did that deputy have? As I understand, he was relatively new. Had he gone to any advanced driving courses?
Nope.
Now, I understand, too, that from a friend of mine, that at one time the sheriff was offered to take his people to the Highway Patrol training facility. They were going to give them advanced training. Toward the date of the training, the sheriff backed off and would not allow his people to go. Now, if that's true, which I have no reason to doubt the police that told me that, then you have to understand that he basically not only hurt his own deputies by not doing that, but he hurt the citizens of this county by not doing that. And see, a big problem with all this too is, and when I recently ran for North Carolina House against Larry Strickland, these were one of the things that I was going to bring up because of the fact that I have a stepdaughter who's a teacher in a rural elementary school in Johnson County, and I have two of my three granddaughters in that school with her, in that elementary school. And it's one of those things, segueing into this discussion. Again, this is all about training. And I have asked for the training records of the deputies. I didn't want to know their names, dates of birth. I didn't want to know any type of personal identifying information, what's called PII. I did not want to know any of that. What I wanted to know was, okay, how many deputies do you have that have their basic certification? How many do they have their intermediate certification? How many have their advanced certification? This tells me roughly the level of training these deputies have, combined with any education. And I was denied that. I even went to county personnel. County personnel said, "Oh, I'm sorry, but that's held by the sheriff's office." So I went through the sheriff's office. I sent numerous emails. I tried to get whatever I could regarding it. And what I got was a letter from County Attorney Ronnie Mitchell telling me to back off. In 2018, I went through the sheriff's office and Larry Strickland, and I still have all the emails regarding this, and also the school board. And I went in front of the school board. In front of the school board, my presentation, I waited for 2 hours to speak. Ross Renfro was there. He was the superintendent at the time. He told me that they would give me whatever time I needed to speak, and that I was being the last speaker. So I was in there about 7 minutes. They cut me completely off, and they claimed that they had some other meeting. Now, what I did is I had parked in the back of the parking lot. In the back of the parking lot, I noticed I sat there for half an hour afterwards, and those people hadn't left. In fact, some of them were standing out in the parking lot, and some of them were walking back and forth. So there was no meeting. That was a lie. So, and that goes along with the lack of transparency with the schools. And we've seen that also with the schools from the interference with the investigation into the assault that happened, where the teacher, I believe, was recently terminated. And that's been a problem. I have asked for the qualifications and training of the SROs within this county, I have been denied all of that. In fact, they would not even give me the number of elementary schools within the county. They would not give me anything. That was another letter that I got from County Attorney Ronnie Johnson, because I had given them information which I believed was very pertinent towards saving the lives of our kids in Johnson County, particularly because only in several elementary schools out of the 28 or so that we have, there are only several elementary schools actually have SROs in them. Mm-hmm. And those SROs are likely undertrained. There's actually 6 schools, including, and a big one is TAC Medic. TAC Medic shows how to apply life-saving packs onto victims of and in mass shootings or active shootings. And this is one of the problems that you're seeing in Texas right now. It also was a problem in Parkland shooting, and I've been studying active shootings for years, and we do not have here the quality security that we should have. What also strikes me is the fact that I've heard about, and I'd have to look at the JOCO report or whatever it is as far as the salaries of different county employees, but there are some rather odd positions that were created for, I guess, family members or friends that pay considerable money, none of which encompasses the responsibility for a person that oversees the SRO program, their training, and all the necessary attributes that's going to need to protect all of Johnson County students.
Let me ask you a question. My son, my little boy, and his friend go to public school. Are they safe?
What grade?
Well, they're in elementary.
No, not unless they have an SRO. Even if they have a single entry program, they found that in schools that it costs roughly $400,000 to $450,000 to what they considered fully in an automated way make a school safe. The thing is, that does not substitute for armed security that is trained to possibly assess a threat. Mm-hmm. There are ways. These people they're not just arbitrarily walking up in general and not without any pre-planning. They're finding that there's significant pre-planning. They're finding they're using bulletproof vests. They've recently they're at one of the scenes they tried to plant explosives that never went off. They were supposed to be a distraction. They are using they're taking tactical backpacks, multiple magazines, and so forth. They are planning what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we're going to find, as I've been watching the news about this latest shooting in Texas, that was a very tragic situation where it appears that there were a number of failures by law enforcement, and that's going to be an issue for a very long time, and probably even change training again somehow. Training has changed several times since I was involved in active shooter training, and so there are a lot of things that have to be addressed, and they're not being addressed here, and that's a big problem. And when you have again, I'm against career politicians.
Oh yeah,
I am, and one of the things that I ran recently on was term limits, and I also ran on that when I was going for sheriff in 2008.
I believe in a 3-term most for sheriff, because you get to a point where you're going to use that for your personal gain. I don't care who you are. I can sit here and say, I won't, but money changes people. Different things, power changes people. I don't want to get corrupt. I don't want to be corrupt, so I'm going to limit it at the 3 term.
Well, I think you lose your ineffectiveness. I think you go in there.
You get comfortable.
I think you get in there idealistically, thinking that you're going to, enact a certain change that you really want that's going to help people where you live. But somewhere along the line, I think you lose that. And then you get used to the fact that, I've got this cool title, and I've got people that open doors for me, and I've got people that will take me to dinner or do this or do that. And that was never for me. When I was asked by a Christian organization in just before Christmas to run against Larry Strickland, I hadn't paid attention to local politics actually in years. And I really had to do a lot of homework, a lot of reading, a lot of research to realize that, but it wasn't that difficult, because, as I said, since 2018, I had been fighting the school system, the school board, Larry Strickland, and the sheriff in trying to improve safety in our schools. It was done at a minimum level, in my opinion. And so as a result of that, I really ran for North Carolina House with that in mind. I had stopped at most police departments or talked to police officers from different agencies and a couple deputies and so forth, and highway patrolmen, and I asked, and all the fire departments that had people, that were there full-time, on a full-time basis and so forth, and then EMTs. And I found out that we had lost 100 EMTs in the last year. And that 50 or 100 EMTs is 50 ambulance crews. And they were going through a very difficult time with COVID, and I understood that, and I empathized with that, because I had been trained as an EMT while with Baltimore County. I was not a paid EMT, but I wanted it because I was running into so many different things myself as a police officer before ambulances got there. So I really felt that I needed it, and I was able to save some lives off of that. So it was important for me to learn. But there are things that are specific to SROs, and I had identified 6 different schools that were needed for SROs, just like you do for police officers. And unfortunately, BLET is not does not substitute for additional training and experience. And to just put somebody in a sheriff's car out of BLET and not give them the additional training they need. In other words, the additional training would include advanced driving, emergency driving, advanced officer survival. That's a very important one, and actually more advanced training. Because I actually worked with people who would not remove or touch a dead body, who would not, these were new guys, that I worked with this second time around from 2007 to 2013, and I was really surprised. They wanted everything they did. They wanted to wait till EMS got there, and sometimes you can't do that. Right. Sometimes you have to put your hands in where you don't want to necessarily put your hands in, but you have to. So, but what I'm saying is this all comes with the knowledge, training, and experience, and unfortunately, we don't have enough deputies doing that. But sadly, these deputies are probably being overworked too. They have. I don't think the sheriff pays any overtime, and as far as I know, there's no comp time.
Well, get this now. Speaking of that, well, for one, Steve has fired several people that had training, that advanced training from other counties. They didn't get it from Johnston. Johnston. I did that for Miss Bird. But Johnston County, they didn't do it here. They got it from other counties. And he's let them go because I guess he's afraid of them. But then, you talk about the point where you have to make a decision on, is it money you want or is it the job? Now, what I'm talking about is a lot of times the money's not there, and you have to be loyal to the job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not loyal to the man, loyal to the job.
Well, you have to be loyal to the citizens.
Now,
but you have to, at the same time, you have to have confidence in the person you're working for, as far as sheriff or chief of police, because literally you may be dying in that position.
Oh yeah.
So you want to make sure you are comfortable with working with who you're working for, and that knowing that if the chips are down, that person's going to have your back.
But let's talk about this money issue you're talking about, how much they make. Well, it was said to me that the officers would work on the construction sites or on the highway for like Mr. Fred Smith or other companies, and they would do it on, it's like overtime. They get paid separate.
All right.
Well, one of them asked the guy, he said, well, man, y'all aren't paying us but $20 an hour. He said, what are you talking about? We're paying you $45. He's like, or $25 an hour. He said, no, we're paying y'all $45 an hour. Where's that other $20 an hour going to?
I never even heard that. Now, what I did hear was that, and I heard this from a sheriff's lieutenant at the time in 2014 when I ran, and he told me that typically the captains, lieutenants, and so forth, the higher ranking ones, would get first priority at any part-time jobs. Well, that's exactly the opposite of what it is in most agencies. Most agencies, it's the persons at the bottom of the totem pole, in other words, the lower paying officers, corporals, or whatever, that are offered those jobs first.
Well, the reason why they did this is because it's tax-free money. I didn't even think about it. I believe that.
Well, what he's doing is he's showing favoritism to those that he's promoted to the higher ranks.
Well, he shows favoritism to the ones that know dirt on him and know dirt of the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But we're going to have to wrap it up because we are getting to the hour.
Yep.
But I do want to bring you back, and let's finish this conversation on another night.
Yeah, there's much more to come in Johnson County. There's much more as far as, especially toward the primary election.
There's a lot, and I know there's another situation with the voting and the election and some of the certain things that had gone on, and I'd like that to be our next conversation. And then I'm only going to release certain amount of information on what's been going on with our sheriff, and either two things are going to happen. One, he's going to break and do what he needs to do and apologize and do what Jimmy Swagger did. Oh, I had sexual affairs and all. I mean, he might do that. I don't know. I don't care. But he needs to own up to what he's done to that office and what he has spent out of that office. And the people of Johnston County own that office, not him.
Well, as a Christian, I believe there's only one true judge, and he's going to have to face that the same as the rest of us. So that's up to him as to how he deals with that. My particular take is that I want to make sure that this county progresses the best that it can. Mm-hmm. It's been overdeveloped and under infrastructured right now, and there are really bad things at work that people need to know about, and I'm involved also with uncovering and being involved in those things so that we can have fair and good elections. But one of the last things I wanted to touch on was if a Republican elected official actually actively assists a Democrat in any way, then that, as I understand it, is subject to that person being separated from the party.
Are you talking about like the example of Meg Scott Phipps?
Miss Phipps, right. The fact that Mrs. Phipps, that this happened with her, I think that probably has to go in front of a federal prosecutor, because that would, from the description you're giving me, I would take it to a federal prosecutor to see if it can be prosecuted, because I would believe that that'd be a felony.
Yeah, I mean, you think about all this stuff that goes on. I mean, one thing, it's civil, it's based on moral turpitude, and
right.
But I mean, that's why you have to be careful of what you do,
right?
And
understand too that between the things that I learned in 2014 when I ran against Steve Bizzle, and what you're finding out now, these things are all true.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because I had people coming in front of me, but they would not testify. You're actually having people come in front of you that are sitting down with you and telling you the truth, and that they will testify. Mm-hmm. And then there are more than one witness per event. So these are very, very important things, and very important things for people to understand, because if this county is going to get better for all of us and our kids, we have to work together to improve it, and these people have to be held to accountability, and there has to be transparency.
Well, look what happened to Cawthorn. They have an ethics panel investigating him. If they did that to Steve Bizzle, he would have been out of there in a split second.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that need to be questioned, and a lot of that has to do with his support system, i.e. the commissioners, basically all of the career politicians. Mm-hmm. They circle the wagons if one is attacked, they circle the wagons. Mm-hmm. And they protect each other. This has got to stop.
Right. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
and I hope
thanks very much.
Hope you do it again. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Jim Davenport. So I appreciate you guys for listening in. I love you. I appreciate it. And I will see you in the next one. Later.